going to continue to leave herself in a space where she thinks she's made it. I know who we used to be. I know who we were. But who are you now? If the kingdom of Christ has an agenda to remove the devil from the world and save people from the devil through the same means, the cross, why does it seem that that's not happening? So Paul says, tell you why. He's going to tell why. Because he's going to learn something. He said, now, having been in a space where I didn't want to live anymore, I had exhausted everything I had, and I was without any strength. But there's a lesson he learns from that. I had the sentence of death in me. He acknowledges that. But it wasn't permanent. It could have been, but it wasn't. When I turned my vision away from my problem and to the one that could solve it, things changed. Things changed. I began to look to the one that actually has the power to resurrect, right? I began to look to the God that has the capacity within himself to resurrect me and keep my life going on. But make no mistake about it, at one point in time, I had exhausted everything I had. Had nothing left, man. But when I looked up, when I learned how to look up, and when the saints began to pray with me, God did something for me and for them, and he resurrected me and gave me new life. That's what he did. That's what he did. It doesn't just happen for Paul. It happened for Lazarus. Jesus purposely allowed Lazarus to die, John 11. When Jesus got the message that he's dead, he sat there purposely. He knew what he was going to do. I'm going to let him die. There will be no discrepancies. When I get back, everybody going to know he dead. But you know what everybody else would know also? When he came alive. Everybody would know that too. Lazarus was a living testimony of the power of the great I am. And those Jews did everything they could to get rid of him. We can be a living testimony of the power of the great I am, both individually and collectively. See, when God resurrects, he lets people know. But he doesn't resurrect people that will not admit that we dead and won't look to him for new life. Go with me just a few more minutes. Go with me to the book of Luke. Go to Luke chapter number 1. And in passing, I'll give you Romans 4:17. When Paul said Paul said this, the God that we serve is the God that is able to call things that are not as if they are. In other words, here's the point that he's making. Go with me to Luke chapter 1. In other words, this is in the context of Abraham. Y'all remember in the context of Abraham, God had given him a promise. He had given him a word, but he had a wife that she was barren. Her womb was dead. Her womb was dead. But God had already said that womb is going to produce a baby. He's able to call things that are not as though they are. You gotta feel that. You gotta feel that. See, Paul has a theology that says that God is able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that we ask or think by the power that works in us. I have to stop putting limitations on my God because I am. We suffer with what psychologists would call imposter syndrome. And every time it like Moses, whenever God says do something, we have a tendency to say, I can't. Right? That's imposter syndrome. That's what that is. We look in ourselves and see our own weaknesses, and we stop looking up. God had to take Moses to Bible class and tell, man, who made your mouth? That's my mouth. Only thing you got to do is say what I tell you to say. I don't need you to give me a resume of your own weaknesses. I just need you to move at my word. That's it. The power ain't never been in you. You just don't want to admit it. Y'all okay? And so Paul in Romans, looking back at the situation that Abraham, he says of that situation, man, God is able to call things that are not as though they were. God seeing something that he hadn't shown us yet. But he's not going to give it to us until we start looking up. Let's go back. He's not going to